Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today we are going to present the factors of child labor and its impact to the children. But before that, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Haida. The first factor of child labor is parents are likely to force their children to work at a young age. Utilitarians would support the idea of child labor as long as they are the sole providers for the family, and without the income, the family would not survive, and as long as the labor is voluntarily provided, the ends will justify the meaning. Children were very profitable assets since their pay was very low, were less likely to strike, and were very easy to be manipulated. Forced child labor is unethical because it is against the autonomy of the children. The consent of the working child is mostly manipulated by the parents. To give consent, a child needs to understand the situations, the consequences, and voluntarily agree to work. Children of young age who have a less than a fully competent capacity can assent to an actions by getting involved in the decision-making process. Children fall easy victim to unfair job condition, and they do not have the power to stand up against mistreatments. The maleficence of this act has long-term physical, psychological, behavioral, and societal consequences. Even if they are lacking the competency of making informed decisions, they are considered individuals with autonomy that should be protected and safeguarded. Ladies and gentlemen, child labor in developing countries affects 211 million children. To illustrate, the continent with the highest child employment rate is Asia with 61%, followed by Africa and Latin America. Nearly 41% of children in Africa are below 14 years old, followed by Asia with 22% and Latin America 17%. India has made a progress in reducing the child labor. However, more than 4 million children in India between 5 to 14 years old work more than 6 hours a day, while about 2 million children aged 5 to 14 years old work 3 to 6 months in a year.
Okay, the next factors of child labor is the demand from the family to support family income. The family will depend on their kids or child to work because the parent is self-made, not able to support their family. It usually happens among migrants group because the family do not work and only get a minimal of salary. When the parents do not work and get a minimal of salary, it will affect their life to support and survive in this high cost of living. Usually, immigrant workers will get lower salary and it does not enough to survive with many kids. So in order to solve this situation, the parents have sending their kids to work. But on the other hand, based on the theory, children working in developing nation because want to support their family. It is because poverty and poor family are still arise in this developing nation. So kids will work because to pay their study fees, and their parents did not able to pay all the commitment, plus their parents are deeply in debt. To reduce this burden and making ease this situation, the children are working to help the family. Other than that, children start to work because of order or following requests from the family to work are because want to help get more family income or assist in family work. As a good kids, they will follow and obey their family requests because to avoid any unintended issue like being punished or being ignored in the family. Rather than sending their kids to school, they are more happy to sending their kids to work. It is because by sending their kids to work, the family cost can be reduced. And then, when children value themselves as a family, majority of them willingly to work because to support their family and family rely on them. As a responsibility kids, they will sure did not want to look their family live in difficulty. So this situation, they take their responsibility to help their family. Other than that, their family also solely relying on them. So they must be responsible to help their family.
The third factor of child labor is the rise of new technologies, in particular machinery, the scope for employing people, including individuals whose body development is incomplete. This is because employers feel that with machinery, child labor do not need the highest skill and effort to finish a job. The labor just need to press the button on the machine, and then the machine will make all the process according to the button press. In fact, child laborers also have more time because most of their working hours have been filled with machinery. The presence of machinery also led to a decrease in child labor demand, and employers were more likely to lower their child laborers' wages because they thought that child laborers needed only low effort to get their works done. So, why should they pay their child laborers with high wages if their work does not require high effort? The existence of machinery also benefit capitalists to use child labor extensively. They will deploy child laborers to do work that machinery cannot do, such as lifting the materials and cleaning construction sites. For child laborers, it is necessity for them to work to meet their living needs. This may be due to the poverty crisis faced by their families who need all family members to work to cover their expenses.
One more cause that's stated in a journal article of child labor issues and challenges written by Kalpana Srivastava is lack of enforcement of labor restrictions. Specifically in India, the Child Labour Prohibitions and Regulations Act 1986 and rules prohibits employment of children in certain specified hazardous occupations and processes and regulates the working conditions in others. The list of hazardous occupations and processes is progressively being expanded on the recommendations of the Child Labour Technical Advisory Committee constituted under the Act. Although many nations' constitutions and laws guarantees free and compulsory education to children and prohibits employment of children in hazardous occupations, child labour is still prevalent in the informal sectors of the economy because of lack of enforcement by the authorities.
Moving on to the implications of child labour. If there is no precautions action taken by the authority to prevent the child labour activity, the family may lose their child due to death and disease. It is because children were exploited to various extents during different periods of time. Child labour has many facets from the ethical point of view. Autonomy, beneficence, justice, non-maleficence, privacies, and veracities are endangered during child labour. The problem was common in poor and developing countries. In the 1800s, child labour was part of economic life and industrial growth. Children less than 14 years old work in agriculture, factories, mining, and as street vendors. Children from poor families were expected to participate to the family income, and sometimes they work in dangerous conditions in 12-hour shifts. For example, in England, boys work in glass factories in high heat in 3 shifts because the furnaces were kept fired all the time to increase productivity, while the girls were forced into prostitution. Countries such as India have made efforts to tackle the worst form of child labour. Despite this, 56.4% of children aged from 5 to 14 work in agriculture and 33.1% work in industry. Indian children are forced into labour to pay family debt. Though they work sometimes in hazardous environments, being forced into commercial sexual exploitation, human trafficking, or forcibly recruited or kidnapped to be part of the terrorist group. Therefore, with the exposure of young children to such dangerous occupation will increase to the case of death among children as well as disease.
Moving on to the next impact of child labor. Social development will be affected when children work compared to when they socialize with others. When children are working, they are more exposed to the negative behavior because the environment at workplace are different with the environment at school. At school, teachers can monitor the student behavior. Teenagers who work more than 20 hours per week are in a high danger to social issues like drug abuse and aggressiveness behavior. They also might involve in gangsterism at school that may lead to the negative attitude. It is also affected educational progressions with low school performance, skip classes, and dropping out being characteristic progress. It is because they start love to work compared to attending the classes or school. For them, attending classes or school did not giving any beneficial for themselves and their families. And then, based on the research, working for 3 hours a day will be affected school performance and presence. For example, when this child always get lower mark at classes, they start lose attraction and interest to attending classes. So they will giving more reason and any excuse for them to spending time in working. The majority of working children will face of loneliness and depression that affected their emotional health as they grow up. With the pressure of the family that have forced them to work, they will start lose friends. It is because most of their time in school are being spending at work, while at the workplace they did not have many friends because they are not know each other and also they might be older than him. This situation can severely affect to their emotional health if there is nothing immediate action taken by their family. If this situation being ignored, they lead to the commit to suicide because they are in high depression and sadness in themselves. So the future of the young generation also will be affected.
The third impact of this article is that children will become uneducated and have low productivity as adults if they work all day. According to Basu in 1999, the non-working time of a child is to spend on studying based on his research. Therefore, unemployed children will be more educated. In addition, many forms of unskilled labor, such as transporting materials and cleaning construction sites, are open to children because they do not require specific skills. According to Swaminathan, in his study on child labor, boys' labor would lower their productivity as they grew up. The study clearly shows that productivity for children will decrease as they grow older. Conclusively, child labor is a thing that really needs to be stopped so that they become educated and productive adults.
In the journal article of Child Labour Issues and Challenges, written by Kalpana Srivastava, she stated that child labour affects children's physiological levels. Mental well-being is less frequently researched in child labour. Supporting this point, a retrospective cohort study in Morocco randomly examined 200 children working in the handicraft sector and found a high prevalence of respiratory, digestive, and skin conditions, as well as mental health presentations such as migraines and insomnia. In a cross-sectional survey, urban Lebanese children aged 10 to 17 working full-time in small industrial shops were compared with non-working matched school children. While majority of them had poor physical health, predominantly marked with skin lesions or ear complaints and social care needs.
To sum up, from the factors of child labour, it can show that child labour has severely affected students. Children labour can be considered as a serious global problem. Child labour is a public health issue with negative outcomes that demands a special attention. a multidisciplinary approach is needed to tackle child labour issues. In order to eradicate the child labour, a crucial step and actions need to be considered by the government with the cooperation from the public. This public health issue cannot be eliminated by only enforcement of child labour laws and regulations. Any comprehensive policies should engulf a holistic approach on the education of children and their families, such as investments in early childhood development programs, establishing public education task force in rural area, implementing policies with focus on increasing adult wage, and discourage the consumers to buy products from forced child labour. Government with other agencies may spread the awareness on the impact of child labour to the public, especially to parents and employers. Strict punishment or fines are necessary to have effective and efficient implementations. Parents should not put pressure on kids by forcing them to work, but parents should educate them in improving their self-development and achievement by sending them to school in gaining knowledge and skill.
In all that, we end our presentation. Thank you.